Because how many new Christians, their number one question is, they come to Christ and they say, okay, what can I not do now? It's such a immature, which is understandable.
Yep.
It's like, tell me what I do and tell me what I don't do. And they're looking at it still from a law viewpoint in, okay, now that I understand Jesus, but then they still want to put themselves under law. How am I going to not do the things I was doing that got me into into all this trouble? But you're getting a different picture by the Spirit, because it's now what you're called to represent and be. You're now imaging God. But we focus, as when we're young in the faith, on, I just need to not do the things written in the law, and now I have the ability. It's like the Spirit is there just to help you not do those things. But it's a flowing out to be Jesus, and it's done through love. You love other people, which leads to sacrifice and these kinds of things, in my opinion. It's flowing out. It's like the illustration of the Dead Sea. I mean, what's the problem? It doesn't flow out. Water goes in, but it doesn't flow out. And so what's the result? It's literally a dead sea. So the sea has to flow out. This living water, the Spirit, it's going to flow out, and the fruits of the Spirit's a good illustration. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. All these things are flowing out. So with that in mind, I wanted to read the last two verses of that 2 Corinthians 3. I left off on verse 4. So he said, it's written by the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, verse 3, but on human hearts. Such confidence as this is ours through Christ before God. Not that we are competent in ourselves to claim anything for ourselves, but our competence comes from God, because you now have His Spirit, His thoughts, His wisdom in your heart. He has made us competent as ministers. Well, there's that, what I'm saying, the vocation. You're now ministers. 2 Corinthians 5 says ambassadors of a new covenant. There's a new covenant. Not of the letter, but of the Spirit. So it's not of the written commands, but it's the Spirit who is now thinking with your thoughts and giving you the ability to discern on how to be a minister on God's behalf. But this last phrase is what I wanted to get to, that I said I'm taking a little bit out of context. For the letter kills. In John 19, it's literally killing Jesus, because they're basing the law. They have this law that he's blaspheming because he's claiming to be the Son of God, which Zach awesomely depicted. Was they were inferring that because of the statements he's making. But since he was from Galilee and a normal fellow, they're like, well, there's no way, so it's blasphemy. So now we have the law and they're applying it. And they're literally trying to kill him because of the law. But the Spirit gives life. But I wanted to read this because when you're putting yourself under the law, how graphic is this passage? The letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Make sure you're on the right side of that in your faith, that you're acknowledging that what I'm doing because of the Spirit of God living in me under the new covenant, and I should be a minister of that instead of some kind of rule-keeping system based on the old law. Part of this, when I was going kind of down a rabbit hole of kind of tracing back where this all started, back to the garden, because I do believe, and I'm convinced, that Jesus is introducing not only a new covenant, but a new creation, which is why you get all this new creation language after his death, burial, and resurrection, and the pouring out of the Spirit. And I think this temptation to put ourselves under law, it comes from books like Proverbs, where the whole thing is about knowledge and wisdom and basically law-keeping. But I discovered, I forgot where I heard this, and I looked it up last night because I was in a Bible study, and we went here. But I'm kind of doing it off the top of my head right now. But I had never noticed this because I get so mad at the NIV for poor translations. And the reason I hadn't noticed this is because they missed something in here. But I want to just try to attempt to do this and get your thoughts on it. But you know how Proverbs starts when it says, and you have here Solomon, the wisest man ever. He's depicted at that. And he starts this off and says, verse 2 of 1, for attaining wisdom and discipline, the Proverbs of Solomon, for attaining wisdom, discipline, understanding, words of insight, for acquiring a disciplined and prudent life, doing what is right, just and fair, for giving prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and get their discerning, and let the discerning get guidance. For understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. And so then verse 7, which is a famous verse, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. What I did not know is when you get to verse 22, you're going to love this. He says, how long will you simple ones love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery, and fools hate knowledge? And then 23 says, repent at my rebuke. Then I will pour out my spirit on you. Now, I looked it up in the Hebrew. It's the word ruah, the same spirit that was hovering over the waters, the same spirit in John 7. But the NIV translates it thoughts. That's why I've been saying that, like you're having the thought, because they translated it thoughts of God. But isn't that something? I will make known to you my teachings. Well, he combines this knowledge that comes from the law with him one day pouring out his spirit. Is when you get to chapter 3 and verse 18, talking about wisdom. Because look, this all is talking about being wise. Who is wise and understanding? Let him show it by his good life. That's in James. But they're getting that all from this book of Proverbs on how to be wise. But look what he says in 3:18, talking about wisdom and figuring out how to apply the command. So first you have this reference of one day he will pour out his spirit. And then verse 18, it says, she is a tree of life to those who embrace her. Those who lay hold of her will be blessed. And the reason I'm skipping there, when you go back to chapter 1 and verse 28, he gives this picture of this fruit tree. 28 of chapter 1. Then they will call to me, but I will not answer. They will look for me, because he addresses people who won't listen to him, since they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord, which is why, by the way, he's going to pour out his spirit. Since they would not keep my advice and spurn my rebuke, they will eat the fruit of their ways and be filled with the fruit of their schemes. But he's using that fruit language, this tree, which takes you back to the garden. For the waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease without fear of harm. And I read all that to say that's what the Spirit is. It's the Spirit of God. You're listening to the Spirit so intimately and personally, rather than trying to apply a list of rules because of our human weakness. Then we start manipulating the laws and figuring out, what's the least amount I can do to be right with God, or whatever that goes, because the bottom line is the law just exposed the sin instead of actually doing something about it, because they continued to be unfaithful to the law up until Jesus redeemed us from the law, which is my point.